Hello and welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show, which reaches 41 million households, including 33 million households across the country, India, and 9 million in the United States of America. We're here today in the city of Madurai in front of Meenakshi Amman Temple, one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Meenakshi Amman Temple was built in honor of the lady deity Meenakshi and her consort Sundareshwara. It's one of the top temples in the state of Tamil Nadu and India. Some of the most beautiful things in this universe are yet unseen, and some of the magnificent treasures are yet unexplored. And some of the most precious things in life are best yet unsaid. Some of the experiences we have are so surreal and realistic. Success, achievements, guts, transformation, pragmatism are some of the few attributes of the guest today at Dr. VGP Talk Show. Welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show. Our guest today is none other than Dr. Palanivel Thiagarajan, an illustrious banker who's turned a politician, who's making waves throughout this country as the Tamil Nadu's State Finance Minister and Human Resources under the dynamic leadership of his leader and Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister, Mr. M.K. Stalin. Sir, we thank you so much for bringing us over here from the Global Eye Chicago to your ancestral home in the city of Madurai, which was built in 1926. Dr. PTR, you're a financial wizard and you're a unique personality and bringing the Dravidian flavor, which we haven't heard for a long time in the last 2 decades. And then we see you casually in jeans and heads. And tell us something about your personality. I know you have a lovely wife, Margaret, and 2 sons, Palani and Vale.
My wife, I'm very fortunate. We met at the university when I was doing my PhD. She was doing her master's. And we had many interests in common. Both of us were a bit concerned about whether she could adapt to moving back to India and politics, which I knew, as I say, was my destiny. But in retrospect, it was both a blessing and a brilliant outcome. She has not only adapted very well, but the constituents, my family, everybody loves her, and so we're in a very good place. We have been blessed with 2 boys. In the Tamil tradition of naming grandchildren after the grandfather, we have named both our children after my father. The first one is called Palani. He's 16 and in about a year away from finishing school. And my younger boy is called Vale, and he just turned 15. He's about 22
teenagers.
Months, younger than. And they live in Chennai and go to school at an international school in Chennai.
When I had visited you in Chennai last week, I had a peek and I saw your wife, how so lovingly she was taking care of you, preparing the salad and setting the table up personally. So you're really in good hands. I mean, that's so fortunate. You don't get such wives who pampered their husband and personally looking over everything. I was in this room and I was looking
Yeah,
at
I
that.
think, sometimes I feel a bit bad because she had a brilliant career. She had 2 degrees. She had a bachelor's in industrial engineering and a master's in engineering management. She was in the auto industry, then she was in the medical device industry. She had progressed to kind of line developer and line manager. And she could have had a very brilliant career, but partly because of wanting to focus on the family, partly because of the location.
Yes.
She cut her career short, and so sometimes I feel a bit bad about that. But of course, my children and I are the beneficiary. And to be honest, we've lived such a expatriate and nomadic life till 5 years ago.
And I think all of you have adjusted very well. What would you call your two sons, mama's boys or daddy's darlings?
I think they're both very independent-minded. Neither
Very
mine
good.
nor my wife's actually. So I suppose my wife should get credit for that because she did much of the work raising them. As you know, between banking, being an expat, and being a politician, much like my father, I didn't spend that much time at home. So yeah.
What are your leisure time activities? I know you're so engrossed, but before you took over the finance minister of Tamil Nadu, what did you do in sports?
Yeah,
Or?
well, though it may not look it now, when I was in boarding school, I played almost every sport, and I continued when I was a young man to a club level, from tennis to badminton to squash to volleyball to soccer, field hockey, almost any, and then of course the club kind of sports like ping pong, billiards, snooker, all of these things. When I was in the US, I learned to sail, both informally and then at MIT, which has a very good sailing school. And I also picked up a bit of golf. So, though it's been a long time since I did either, I've sailed only a few places in Sweden, in the US, Canada, in the Caribbean. But I played golf in many, many places because being a banker,
Of course, that's where all the business
and
takes place
also
on golf
client
courses.
events and all that. So, particularly at Standard Chartered, we regularly held client events. So, I played in many Southeast Asian countries, and I was based in Singapore, and of course in the US and in New York.
So glad to know that you have such an adventurous side of you with an intelligent and business sense and being a nonsense politician and a great leader with a Dravidian touch. How would you describe yourself in 3 words? If there are 3 adjectives or attributes would define Dr. PTR.
I would say I don't take myself too seriously. I don't know if I can put that into one word. Self-deprecating, I guess.
In financial economic time, the first time I've heard somebody describe that as a part of the personality.
Passionate about doing the right thing and what I believe in, and hardworking, I would say. Yeah.
Fantastic. So the 3 attributes you describe yourself are self-deprecating, passionate, and hardworking. Is there any one particular cause which you would fight for, or you intend to? Is there something
Well, I
which
think
you still?
the key to societal progress is inclusive growth. Right? Very often we find the two are at odds with each other. We find that growth is relatively easy to achieve without fairness. Inclusion is sometimes achieved without growth. But to get the best of both worlds, and I'll put that in context. Why we are so proud of the last century of Dravidian politics in Tamil Nadu is that it is uniquely a high per capita income, large, high human development index, high social development index, low Gini coefficient state. It's very hard to find any other state in India that can match all these things. So, for example, a Gujarat or a Maharashtra has very high economic output, GSDP. In fact, Gujarat may have a slightly higher per capita GSDP. But separation of the haves and the have-nots, the spread of wealth is much, much, much higher than in Tamil Nadu. Again, if you take medical kind of treatment options, Tamil Nadu, uniquely in India, has about 4 doctors for every 1,000 people. That's better than the United States. That's better by a lot than even Gujarat. So, this notion of inclusive growth, that we take everybody along, that you don't leave somebody behind. The same notions that have made places like Australia, New Zealand, or Singapore, or the Scandinavian countries, kind of high quality of life, high per capita income countries. I think that is really the one goal that I would say professional competence plus compassion and consideration bring to public progress.
Your dynamic and pragmatic leadership, and you talk about inclusive growth, is how you're doing radical reforms in the state of Tamil Nadu finances under the visionary leadership of the Chief Minister, Mr. M.K. Stalin. We would like you to throw some more light about that, and we want to hear your further insight into it. And we should, if you could walk us through your office, and we could go there and you could tell us more about it and tell all our viewers what's happening in Tamil Nadu state. Madurai is the cultural capital of Tamil Nadu, has a rich heritage. And also in 1921, when Gandhiji visited Madurai, he saw the agricultural laborers wearing lion cloth, and that's how he started changing his mode of dressing. I don't know if much of our viewers know, and you were mentioning at the same time of your great-grandfather in 1921, who was in London and came back during Gandhi's time and part of the movement. So Madurai has a great significant place in history today.
Yeah, I mean, Madurai really, we should go back much more because, as you know, in Tamil culture, Madurai is famous for the Sangam, the three Sangam eras, for the literature, for the evolution of the language and literature and art, of course, for the temple, for other things. But what we have now discovered with the excavation at Kiladi is settlements,
Recently, yes.
settlements that over the last 5 years, because we have gone deeper and deeper every dig, started out from about 100 BC to then 300 BC to now 600 BC, 800 BC. We are discovering. So 2,800-year-old settlements in what was then the path of the Vaigai River, with the equivalent of industrial development, pottery, textile, dyeing, metalwork, trading. We have found, coins and stuff from other parts of the world. So, and it's still got a lot more to go. So, the culture is literally a few thousand years old. And a friend of mine, Mr. Balakrishnan of the IAS, retired from Odisha, has written a book, From Indus to Vaigai, the journey of a civilization. And this talks a bit about it. Now, in more contemporary terms, as you said, this city is where, Gandhi, the father of our country, first decided to give up his normal attire. But the traditional Gujarati, kind of wealthier, multiple yards of clothes, swathing oneself, from that to just a loincloth, that decision he took in, handicraft center, which was about 4 houses away from our ancestral house, which I told you we bought in the 1890s in West Marcy Street. It's in my constituency.
Wow,
So
excellent.
that's So Madurai has a lot of links to history of our culture, of our people, and as a consequence, partly of that event, we have a famous Gandhi Museum here. The old Rani Mangamai Palace has been converted into a Gandhi Museum, and it's one of the better Gandhi museums in the country with more content and artifacts.
It's so apt that a person from Madurai like yourself, with your friend writing that book From Indus to Kaveri and Vaigai,
Yeah.
and that you are in charge of the state finances today. And if you look at history, it was people like you who went abroad, studied, and came back, left all the opportunities there to serve your motherland and to nurture and transformation. And the way
I haven't studied that much history other than our own, but I would say certainly that's true of the Dravidian movement and the Justice Party, in the sense that many of the senior leaders of the Justice Party were Oxbridge returns, were people who had studied at the seminal universities of the UK at that time, the center of kind of the global, colonial era economy, and who had studied the law. And I made this comment earlier that by coincidence, in the year 2013 or 14, when I was, sent for some training through Standard Chartered Bank, which had a affiliation with the Said Business School at Oxford, that I happened to go back to Jesus College, Oxford, where my grandfather had studied. He had studied between 1912 and 1915, so almost exactly a century later. And the context and the surroundings and so forth suddenly made a kind of a revelation to me that one of the reasons the Justice Party was so focused on social justice was that people like my grandfather, who were wealthy landlords, who were on the upper strata of society, who were the ancestral trustees of temples, people who had reached that level of society, for the first time probably faced outright discrimination as a minority immigrant, different colored skin, different type of persons in the UK. And then it struck them what the experience must be like being at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So I think I often say that the Justice Party stands unique, at least in Indian political history, in fact, in most places of the world, where the people at the top of the pyramid argued for flattening the pyramid.
Wow.
It's very rare. Mostly it's the people who talk their own book, right?
Exactly. There's so much history. Yeah. Do you plan at any time putting the family lineage and what they've contributed, writing an autobiography or writing a book on the PTR's family contribution to the Dravidian culture and movement?
Yeah, there's already been a lot of other books and a lot of other recorded, articles and research and so forth. I think other people have done their PhD research on my father and my grandfather. So I don't feel the compelling need to do that, at least not right now. Maybe let's see if I achieve something of note, then maybe I can talk about writing about I can think about writing about my experiences.
And we'd like to tell you, you were the first finance minister, as I can recall, in the state of Tamil Nadu, who ever presented a white paper on the finance of Tamil Nadu. What prompted you on that?
Actually, there's a history of white papers. I think the last one was done indeed by Mr. Ponnayan, the former finance minister. But I had been, as an opposition MLA for the last 5 years, talking about two things. One, about the rapid deterioration of the financial situation, of the balance sheet, of debt, of interest payments, etc. But second, that many of the accounts didn't quite add up. A lot of it was being swept under the carpet, right? A lot of losses in the public sector undertakings were not matching, the stock of debt at the end of year one plus the loss at year two was not adding up to the stock at the end of year two. Just the simple math was not matching. Now, of course, coming from Wall Street and from the derivative background, I understand that, books can be written many ways. But I wanted the people of Tamil Nadu to know the point at which we were starting, just so they got a feel. Not just, it was not so much about blaming anybody as saying, really, this is where the situation is. And what do we have to do to get from here to there? And the underlying reason for that is, as our leader has said, we have this kind of 4 or 5 step approach to governance. One, get as much data and do as much analysis as possible. To put that out into the public domain. Have a transparent government. Don't do things in a hidden way. And when you put it out in the public domain, engender a debate, a kind of, in the commons, a debate that says what should we be doing, what is right, what is wrong, and of course the inputs of experts. Based on that, come up with a kind of constructive approach and strategy, and then go ahead and execute that with continuous feedback loop to see whether you're going in the right direction, getting the right outcomes. So this is very much a kind of professional, technical approach to this problem. And the white paper was just, a piece with that strategy.
A precursor to what's the status, the baseline before
starting? Yeah, for example, we pointed out in the white paper that every time a public transport bus runs, the state loses 60 rupees.
Wow.
That in some public sector undertakings, we are paying probably 2 or 3 times in pensions what we are paying in wages. So these are all things that, the public ought to know. What are really benefits costing? how targeted are they? It's, for example, we have announced some loan waivers. Who's really benefiting from these loan waivers? Is it people who are genuinely in distress? Is it people who have gamed the system? These are all things that, a professional approach, a technical analysis, a data-based approach will show. So the white paper was meant to kind of draw a line. Say, this is where we are. This is the baseline of where our government is starting. These are the facts. This is how much hidden debt there is. This is how much, actual debt there is. This is how much interest we're paying. And to start from there and mark ourselves from there in a way to make sure that we kept improving compared to that baseline.
Another first the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, Mr. Stalin, has done in the finances, established the Tamil Nadu Economic Development Council, which you have initiated with Nobel laureates, international experts in the field, which no other state in India has done. How did that evolve? And I'm seeing that you're frequently meeting. It's not just on the paper announcing a committee or a commission, and that shows all credit should go to you. How are they affecting the transformation that you're trying to bring?
Well, I think, as I said, somewhere in this strategy is the input of experts. So this was, again, a piece of that strategy is to get the experts. Of course, it helped based on my international exposure and previous experience. But to be fair, at least three of the 5 people had a direct genetic connection with Tamil Nadu. Dr. S. Narayan, Professor Raghuram Rajan, and Arvind Subramanian. And Professor Duflo of the MIT and the Poverty Action Lab already was engaged in a bunch of studies in Tamil Nadu due to the previous government's MOU. And of course, Professor Drez is a seminal thinker in many welfare schemes and so forth. So we wanted people of diversity of views, of kind of clear contributory value, but who felt in their heart a passion to participate, because it's after all on a voluntary basis. They're not charging us anything. So, of course, it took a bit of discussion back and forth. Like all normal, considerate professionals and people who have a track record of public service, all of our advisors wanted to contribute. But of course, the modality is the really important thing, because as you say, so many committees and commissions and groups get set up and don't end up achieving anything. So through the course of discussions, it became clear that an informal kind of regular interaction of technical inputs and suo moto from them in some cases inputs or answers to questions we would raise in some other cases would be like a working group rather than a committee that issues a big fat report at the end of which whether action happens or not is out of their hands.
It's a realistic, practical group. And I think your Chief Minister Stalin's administration in the last 5 months has sparked global interest. And his announcement of by 2030 having Tamil Nadu will have $1 trillion budget.
Yeah, economy.
Economy, and that's.
I think it's good to have these goals and to make sure that society holds you accountable. Now, to be quantitative, that is not a hugely unrealistic number. Okay. In the sense that right now we are somewhere between a 280 to 300 billion economy, depending on how you measure it. Mostly because of COVID. Otherwise, we would have clearly crossed 300 billion by now. So to get from 300 billion, assuming that there's not a huge exchange rate volatility between now and 10 years from now, is roughly a compound annual growth rate in nominal terms, including inflation, of about 13%. Now, we have easily achieved that many times in the past. So, for example, the 2006 to 11 DMK regime achieved a real growth rate north of 10% every year, compounded for 5 years. Wow. So, if you add in inflation in India 5-6%, that's more like 15, 16, 17% nominal growth rate. So 13% nominal growth rate is not, a kind of pie in the sky, wild-eyed estimate or ambition.
And with you in the steering the field, it could easily be achieved.
You have I'm not so sure that one man makes that much of a difference. Maybe the chief minister does. But more important, I think having such a concrete goal and now breaking it down. So the next step that we're going to do is to talk about sector by sector. How much of the economy is this sector? what is the realistic rate of growth of this sector over the next 3 years, then the next 3 years, then the next 3 years, and so forth, because it's hard to predict 10 years out immediately. And therefore, at different phases of our growth, different parts of the economy should be getting greater or lesser kind of room to grow. And of course, global economic conditions, supply, demand, etc., will hurt or help, will affect. At this point, we have two major positives. One is that there is still a huge glut of global liquidity looking for a home.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
basically
That's the reason we are here to interview you. To find out.
the rich have gotten a lot richer. All of the quantitative easing strategies, starting with the global financial crisis and post-pandemic, and then the fiscal kind of spending post-pandemic for recovery, have not been contained to the places where they originated. Much of that money has traveled all over the world, and you can see that kind of sloshing around liquidity in the sky-high valuations of both stock markets,
Yes.
indices, as well as real assets all over the world, not just one. Because money is fungible these days. You can't contain where it goes. The second advantage we have is that, both the kind of trade frictions with China prior to the pandemic, and then a lot of people's diversification away from China kind of compulsion after the pandemic, is driving a lot of opportunity to other countries that have the capability of, producing high quality goods and services in an efficient manner. So in that sense, India as a whole, but Tamil Nadu in particular, because we have always had one of the most attractive profiles within India. We are the number one destination for World Bank lending, for ADB lending, and so forth within the country. So these two macro variables are very much in our favor now. So we should actually be looking to have huge surge, partly because of the low base effect after the last year's, kind of dip because of COVID, partly because of these very favorable external conditions. The early parts, 13% is not the right target. It's more like 16, 18% in nominal terms because of both inflation. So real growth of 10, 12% plus inflation on top of that. And then, of course, we can moderate it as things go back to normal.
Chief, you struck national headlines when your elucid explanation of general services tax between the state and the central government. And of course, it was looked like you locked horns with the union government. But for the first time, we heard a very clear explanation how the state rights were aborted and taken over by the central government. And how do you see resolving that? And you were the only courageous finance minister in the whole country, or I would say intelligent, who was able to read through and question it, which none of the financial pundits had done so far.
Yeah, I'm always reluctant to use things like only and insightful and all that. No,
because practically we're saying we didn't hear it from any other chief, finance minister. Ashok Sen was there in West Bengal. Nobody asked Mitra. Nobody had given
listen, I think part of it is just timing, in the sense that because I only got sworn in 6 months ago, and because the first council meeting after an 8-month break due to COVID was happening right after I got sworn in, and because I used the opportunity, not just was this my first meeting, was this the first meeting after 8 months, but since GST is only 4 years old, the DMK had never been running the government when GST existed. So this was the first time we were coming to run the office after GST was introduced. So I used these opportunities to do kind of a smell test. I said, in 4 years, what have we achieved? What have we not achieved? What was the intent? What was the fear? And all I did was hold up a flashlight to say that the fears have been realized equally or more than they were presented back 4 years ago. And the benefits have not nearly crystallized anywhere near what they were expected to be. And therefore, the pandemic plus the end of the compensation 5-year period built into the GST regime is a chance for us to do a once-in-a-lifetime reform and correction. And why I say once-in-a-lifetime is that it's only 4 years old. If it had been 20 years old, maybe it's harder to make changes. I said it's nascent, and we lost about a year and a half of that 4 or 5 years in the pandemic. So now is the chance, because we all have a systemic memory of what the world was like prior to GST. It was only 4 years ago. 20 years from now, they won't remember what it looked like pre-GST. So, to be fair to and I'm not interested in locking horns with anybody. I'm interested in getting good outcomes. So in that sense, very magnanimously, the Union Finance Minister has constituted some new committees, a group of ministers, which is what they call the committees of the GST Council. And one of them is a standing committee, meaning it has no timeline. Most committees have a 2-month or 3-month or 4-month timeline. This is a standing committee, and it's a standing committee on reforms and systemic improvements. So, she has very graciously nominated me to that committee as well.
You'll be a great asset to the
I hope so. But I think, it's a sign that, it's not just me. And, certainly the person you mentioned, Dr. Amit Mitra, has been vocal about the constraints and the issues. He has been very clear and very firm about the negative consequences, as have other ministers. In the last 2 or 3 meetings I attended, I can recall very precise and concise contributions of great value from the Honorable Finance Minister of Punjab, Mr. Badal, from Andhra, Bugana Rajendranath, from Telangana, Harish Rao, from Kerala, Mr. Balakrishnan.
So you've set the ball rolling in the right direction.
No. Listen, I'm the new kid on the block, right? They've been at it. Most of them have been at it a lot longer than me. So if I got any kind of incremental attention, it's because I was the new kid on the block, and because this was the first time the DMK was in office after the formation of. After the introduction or adoption of GST. So it just gave me a chance to do a kind of state of the state. Where are we? What's right? What's wrong? What needs changing? And that, concise kind of status check got a bit of attention. But these are not, either profoundly new or profoundly, radical concepts.
But at least you made everybody aware of it. And coming back to Tamil Nadu, we read that you are there's a lot of challenges, and you're trying to bring new financial modes and mechanisms and balance and checks. Could you enlighten us briefly about that? What's going on?
I just recently held a press conference and wrote an op-ed to follow, where I talked about the nature of the accounting model that the Government of India and the states follow, which is cash accounting.
Yes.
And the kind of time lapse between intent and final accounts, which is almost 2 years between presenting a budget and presenting the final account, lends itself to a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of misperceptions. So money that we think is spent because it has been moved out of the consolidated fund is often not spent and just parked somewhere else. Sometimes it's parked and later spent, sometimes it's parked and forgotten. Yeah. So from that perspective, again, part of our reform initiatives, we had talked about making the system more accountable and productive, making the legislature more empowered, data-centric governance, better fiscal state, relations. So we had a platform, a kind of reformation of the platform of the government, of any government itself, that we had highlighted in the budget. And so part of that was to integrate all of these systems to make sure that there was no kind of opacity between what we intended and what the outcome was, right? Let's be clear. Did we achieve it or not? And very often I say, as I said in the op-ed, though we see a lot of attention paid to ideological differences of philosophy, of intent, big debates, sometimes with light, a lot of times with noise, we see very little attention paid to looking backward at outcomes. Did we achieve, irrespective? I may have started it for reason A, you may have started it for reason B. Who achieved the right outcome? That's the real definition of success. It's not that you had the right intent. Everybody has good intent.
I think for the first time, Tamil Nadu has a finance minister who is a financial expertise himself. And recently I read that the unutilized funds in Tamil Nadu, you had made an initiative and you went at it and you got a very good result. Could you enlighten us on how that came about? And
so, every year in the CAG reports, that is the audit reports, you find these statements about funds that are spent at the end of the year. And spent at the end of the year means shifted to an account that you can't see. So I had always expected to find some of this, and so with the Honorable Chief Minister's consent, I started this initiative that I long had in my mind. And I was very pleased first to find some numbers that were quite promising. But then I chose a two-track approach, which I announced in the budget. I said, partly I'll start asking the departments and the heads of departments, the collectors, where do you have money parked? Partly I'll ask the banks, and let's see if they cross-reference. A huge disparity, the numbers. So, of course, the simplest explanation for the disparity is that personnel changes happen so often in these departments and collectorates that new people don't remember where the old people parked the funds. And the bank accounts are likely to be more realistic, though I still don't believe they're comprehensive. But, as an interim measure, we reported that about 2,000 crores of unspent and not spendable, because the window of opportunity for that spending had lapsed, were being retrieved back to the Treasury. That would help our current financial situation. And I've said in that report that I expect that by the time all is said and done, many multiples of that will be what we will recover or redirect to other spending.
That is a step in the right direction. What would you say you would like the Tamil expats all over the world, how could they contribute to the Tamil Nadu's trillion dollar economy?
Yeah, I think this is the greatest hope that I have, or the greatest confidence that I have. If you look at the Tamil diaspora in almost every field, in medicine, in technology, in finance. Recently, you may have seen that Barclays, the CEO, stepped down, and his replacement is somebody of Tamil origin at the global level, global CEO. So, any major economy, any part of the world, any sector of the economy, there are very, very successful Tamil expatriates and Tamil diaspora, maybe first generation, maybe second, third. And so I know that all of them have a deep love for the motherland and for the language and for the people. And many of them, many of you have relatives, have family, have friends, have connectivity, alumni networks. And so there are many channels as well. I think the challenge for somebody like me, and more broadly for my department or the government, is to find the best way to harness this goodwill, this connectivity, this intent to contribute, and find a way to do that. Of course, the Honorable Chief Minister has already announced a kind of board for expatriate Tamils. But that goes both ways, in the sense I think his primary intent on that was more to take care of and provide services to expatriate Tamils living outside who may need a lot of things done here, whether it's certificates, paperwork, transaction support for their ailing parents or their relatives, so forth. So I think, we want to do our part as well. We want to provide a robust platform for people who need things taken care of while they're away. And of course, in return, and in a longer perspective, we want to set up a channel that helps people with the right intent contribute. It's early days yet. My suspicion is that within the next 2-3 months, when we have to present the next budget, the first full budget, as opposed to the amended budget for last year, that we'll have greater clarity on the specific parts and methodologies and initiatives through which we can harness this goodwill and intent of the Tamil diaspora.
I think you have started in the right direction, having conversations, and started the Tamil Nadu Economic Development Council, and you have had the debate on the GST and also the unutilized funds, and working towards the global trillion economy. And also you're putting in new checks and balances in the finance department and transformation. And I'm sure Tamil Nadu, under the visionary Stalin's leadership and your contribution to the financial part, we can expect, I think your appointment has put Tamil Nadu on the global map right now. Everybody is looking up to Tamil Nadu, you won't believe it, from all over to see what's going to happen next. And we thank you so much, Chief, for joining us and being with us, and we'll invite you to come over to visit us when you have time. And what's your parting message to the Global Eye viewers today?
Well, I think, though times have been very difficult all around the world, particularly for the last couple of years, and the consequences will still be felt for a long time to come. You've seen our initiative where we're trying to bring children back to school, right? A disruption of a year and a half from in-class teaching is not something you can overcome lightly. So though we still have many challenges ahead, and though, times have been very difficult, the future looks quite bright because of the resilience of people, because of the inherent investment in social justice and equality that we have done in Tamil Nadu for 100 years now, from the inception, from the Justice Party days. I am filled with hope. I feel like we are only starting to scratch the surface. There is so much more we can do. We have, as they say, blue sky, up above us, and partly because of the Chief Minister's vision and confidence and political leadership, partly because the systems are so archaic, and improving them will definitely give us results. And most of all, because of the enormous goodwill of the Tamil people within and outside Tamil Nadu, I am very, very confident that we can provide a kind of unprecedented era of inclusive growth.
That's the key word, inclusive growth. Absolutely.
As the Chief Minister says, "Ellorukkum ellam," says everything for everyone. I add, as being the Finance Minister, everything for everyone within the notion of social justice and economic fairness, not unlimited. But I think we can do such a good job that we can be a role model for at least our fellow states in India, where too many of them either sacrifice growth for inclusion or inclusion for growth. And this balancing act of having inclusive growth, not because we're great geniuses, but because we have this platform of 100 years to build on.
Yes.
We have a human capital that's unique. We have a development index that's unique. We have a Gini coefficient that's uniquely low for a large, rich state. And therefore, we are standing on such a wonderful platform our ancestors built, both literally and philosophically, in my case, that I feel very confident we can continue to show unique outcomes and unique models of what compassionate government should do.
You all can see Dr. PTR, his feet is firmly on the ground and set his sight on the stars. And we thank you for joining us. And Tamil Nadu is in great hands with your Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and his man Friday, Dr. PTR, who's here. You've heard him, you've seen him, and we are expecting you all to reach greater heights with the inclusive growth was the mantra of the hour. And as you can see, Dr. PTR, he says what he means, he does what he says. Like he said, you want to add to that? I couldn't get the last line.
No, all I said was that one of the things that makes me a bit unique is in politics in Tamil Nadu, but also in India, is that I spent so much of my adult life in the US, from 2021 till 41. That part of my communication style is very American, it's very direct.
Yes.
And so, sometimes that's an asset, sometimes that's a liability. But very often I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And that's a very rare trait in politicians generally. So maybe time will dull that edge. But right now, it's a relatively unique edge.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll do a high five and signing off. Thank you.